would like to welcome our eminent speaker for this session, Miss Irina Naithani from Germany. I welcome you on behalf of GB Pant Institute of Engineering and Technology, Pauri Garhwal, India. And I welcome you. I am happy that you have given your time, precious time, to deliver a talk in our faculty development program in optoelectronics and optical communication, recent trends. And our participants are very much enthusiastic to learn about the ethics, values, and moral things, which is not technical session, but its name is deep communication, but it's more psychological communication, not the communication we study that is related to photons and electrons, much electronics. So it's not electronic session, but it's a ethical section, moral session. Thank you very much for your valuable time. I would like to introduce to our participants about our speaker for this session. So Miss Irina Naithani is founder and chief executive officer of organizational psychologist, executive coach, facilitator of purpose and transformation processes, and she is also former strategy consultant. Her professional experience, 11 years of experience in international strategy as a consultant at Accenture, thereof 6 years as a senior manager, director in the field of sustainability and strategy, and prior to that, 5 years in the field of talent management and organizational effectiveness. Seconded as a project manager for a social business initiative of SAP AG together with Nobel Peace Prize winner Professor Yunus Hathi in Hathi. Since 2019, she is freelance consultant, and since 2021, she is the founder and CEO of Werise, the collective growth agency in Germany. Her educational and qualifications, she is a graduate degree in psychology from University of Cologne, organizational and clinical psychology from Germany. 1 year studies of psychology at Universitat Autonoma de Barcelona from Spain. She is certified master coach, certified systematic coach, leadership in times of disruption, that is theory EU. Presencing Institute, MIT, Sloan, facilitating emergence, leading from the future at Findhorn International Center of Sustainability, purpose mentor of F-Lane Accelerator for Female Empowerment, Vodafone Institute, and Unis Social Business 2020, integral coaching and organizational development. These are her interest areas. I heartily welcome our eminent speaker for this session to our institute, to India, and I hope our participant will learn something in this session. So now it's up to you, Irina. Please, you can take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev, for introducing me and for hosting me. I'm very delighted to speaking to you today, to meeting all of you here in Germany. It's still rather early. So I'm delighted that we can come together as a global village in this conference. So I will pull up the presentation so that you can follow me. And okay.
Yeah.
Just a second. So can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, super. So today we'll be talking about the topic of deep communication. So as Dr. Sanjeev pointed out so nicely, you are you have like this real deep technical perspective, and as I understood, you're working and you're actually building like the future means on how we can communicate. So today I would like to take you on a journey to also cover up the inside perspective of communication and what we can actually learn in order to create more innovation and positive impact. Yesterday, I tuned into Dr. Kaushik's presentation, and I was very delighted listening that when he finished up his presentation, he said, we really need a deeper kind of collaboration across the ecosystem in order to develop innovative solutions. And yeah, I actually think this is exactly what we'll be covering here today. So let's begin our journey. And I'm totally looking forward to all your questions and feedback at the end of the session. So we'll be definitely having a Q&A. So as you are like the tech experts on creating the means for communication, I guess you are pretty much aware of the famous saying from Paul Watzlawick, the Austrian communication expert, that you cannot not communicate. So as he indicated, we are communicating as soon as we perceive each other. So basically, every kind of interaction is a form of communication. And as a matter of fact, we are always communicating. So even while you sleep, you transmit something saying to the outside world, please do not disturb. Do not talk to me right now. And I think it's pretty powerful to make yourself aware of this fact. You are always communicating. So as a consequence, I would say, since we are always communicating, it's a massive responsibility. And the more we grow, meaning the more responsibilities we may assume in our lives, like collaborating with colleagues or leading other people, having a family, raising kids, having an active role in our community, the more we do outreach to other people, the better we need to be able to communicate effectively. And just to highlight the point I just made is, like, imagine 281 billion emails are being sent every single day. And I looked up the statistics, and they said this trickles down to an average of 126 business emails a businessman or woman gets every day. 100 billion WhatsApp messages are sent daily. And this year in April, Zoom stated 300 million daily meeting participants. So we are actually being urged to communicate basically 24/7. And that's why we really do need to develop the skills how to best utilize those moments of interaction, and moving even beyond like that daily, the daily means of emailing and social media. We also do have to create space for communication that goes below the surface to really unlock innovation and create impact. So today we'll be covering the 5 most important skills that I came across that really in a combination help you create innovation and impact. So the 5 skills are around creating resonance with others. It's about listen deeply, I mean really deep, and spark connections that help build trust and a sense of belonging. We'll be talking about how to use the power of the unified brain and what's that supposed to be, and how to co-create as you communicate. So my wish for you today is really that you take something out, and I'm sure you will get a lot of inspiration to take out of this session, and to really, to integrate that into your daily life. Because all these skills are made up of, tiny habits that we just have to start integrating consciously so that they really can unfold their magic, and their effect on your life and the way you communicate. So before we dive deeper, I wasn't sure how now Dr. Sanjeev had already introduced me very nicely. So maybe one note, as you can tell from my surname, I'm especially honored to speak here today as my husband's family is originated from Pori Gaval, and we are based in Germany. And as a coach and as a founder, I'm providing coaching journeys and leadership development and personal development programs for my clients. And I'm really happy to discuss with you what you will be taking out of this session today. So let's get started. What is communication? We touched upon this as we began. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. Every communication involves one sender, a message, and a recipient. However, we will see in a second how to amplify that rather linear approach to communication in order to get different and better results. And I am wondering, since communication has the power to build bridges and to connect each other, it's striking that in today's world we experience all the contrary. Like, we have the phenomenon of fake news, like a lot of false and misleading information out there that's presented as news, that's intentionally damaging the reputation of a person or an entire entity, leading to more, divided societies, increasing the sense of separation both within societies and also between nations and groups of people. And to make matters even worse, we are facing the most massive global challenges ever if you think of the pandemic and climate change. So a good communication that helps us to collaborate and to fix all the issues we face as a species would be so essential to get us out of the situation we are in collectively. And since this is really a hard task, many of us are feeling overwhelmed, literally on a daily basis, being eaten up by the amount of communication tasks and messages, and at the same time not feeling really connected, even though we are communicating day in and day out. So what can we do about it? I believe that the way how we communicate is really not just a private matter, because it is reflected like also in the greater system. If we put ourselves first in the way how we communicate, this will be also reflected in the greater system. So we need to work on our communication on all levels. Like really start with the micro, like ourselves, on the meso level, which is our teams, our colleagues, our families, and thereby also influencing how it is being communicated on the macro, like on the global level. And that's why I also do believe that today more than ever, we need to learn and teach deep communication skills that allow us to connect in more effective, authentic, and impactful ways with ourselves, with others, and with the whole world. So I guess you're curious now how we can make this more tangible. So let's get started with skill number 1, which is about creating resonance. So before we unlock the mystery of how you really can enhance the resonance with other people, I want to introduce you a metrics that I totally love and that I work with a lot. So this 4 quadrants metrics is like one of the most powerful yet simple frameworks. And well, it's made up of 2 dimensions, like on the one hand, the individual versus collective dimension, and the inner subjective versus outer objective dimension. So this is a concept taken out of Ken Wilber's integral theory. And what he says is that this is like a meta metrics, like a meta system, and that actually almost everything you are doing right now has 4 quadrants, like an inner part and an outside part, or an individual and collective part. You might want to think back of all the lectures you have been listening to during this conference so far. And I would assume that, I guess, most of the topics were located like in the 4th quadrant, like where you can see the 2 guys talking to each other, which is about really, co-create and get things done. It's the quadrant of structures, processes, tools, like something that is visible in the outside world, that can be talked about, and that is being shared on a collective level or on a team level. But if we start like in the 1st quadrant, there is the I space. So everyone who is attending this call right now, we all have an I space, like our very unique point of view, like what are our values, what we appreciate, how we are feeling, like this is really, if you imagine, like if you were meditating, this inner view, this inner connection, that's about the I space. Then, of course, if you look at the 2nd quadrant, we also have the we space. So this is like the cultural dimension or social dimension of maybe a team. If you think of a team, it's not like the different roles or ways how you communicate, but it's really like how you feel, how is your sense of belonging, what are your shared values, what might be your shared vision. So this is rather not so much perceived in an objective way, but it's felt in a subjective way. Then if you look at the 3rd quadrant, this is all about what can be perceived in the outside, but on an individual level. Like, what are your skills? Maybe you have the skill to make funny dances, like the icon here, or you are a great lecturer, or whatever it might be. Maybe you can cook fantastically. So those are the really skills and competencies and all your expertise you can share with the world. So these quadrants are really helpful to, to be aware of, because oftentimes we tend to forget when the other quadrants and focus just on one. Like, for example, a client of mine, he once came to me and said, well, we have a new operating system and people, they just don't get it. They don't work the way they are supposed to be working right now. And he suggested to me and said, well, Irina, we need like an all hands meeting where everybody gets together and then we explain and explain once more how the new system is supposed to be working. Then what I did is I set up a meeting with him and his executives, and I introduced the 4 quadrants to them. And I gave them the homework to speak to their, line managers in order to find out what really, what the problem was really about. Because I somehow thought, well, I guess it's not about that they don't understand what they are supposed to be doing. And once we gathered back, the executives were really amazed, because for the first time they really had listened to their subordinates, and what they found out was that there was a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, like people feeling they were not worthy anymore, or they were afraid they were about to lose their jobs. So a lot of disturbances on the inner quadrants, like on number 1 and 2. And the real solution to that topic really was to fix those quadrants first, and to set up, meetings and formats and connecting opportunities to get rid of the fear and to enhance the sense of belonging before they really could move on and tackle the new operating system. So if we come back to skill number 1, which is about creating resonance, then actually it's really all about one thing, and that is staying in the present moment, which is a prerequisite for creating resonance with others. If I am not connected with myself, I cannot truly connect with other people. And while this sounds or may sound like a no-brainer, this is, to be honest, my experience in my work life for like more than a decade, that many people have vast difficulties to stay connected with themselves and at the same time being connected with somebody else. So we somehow tend to be either focusing on the other or on ourselves. And the questions you can see here on the screen are just like reminders. What is actually, what is it all about? How can I become more present with myself? Unless, of course, I'm doing yoga or meditate or whatever, but it's really to enhance that self-awareness. Like, what's really going on in my mind right now? What are the thoughts? What are the thinking patterns I can observe? To realize that these are just thoughts and maybe not myself. And also to be aware, how am I towards the other? Am I open-minded or am I judgmental somehow? And also being very conscious of what is important to me. What are my values? And also what triggers me? How do I feel? And to really embrace that and stay with it. So again, here I've done a lot of experiments on that with myself, also with my clients, and we all came up with the same insights that, for example, if you have an important meeting, or let's say you may want to pitch something to somebody, if you take a moment right before you step into that meeting and really invest in connecting with yourself, I promise to you that the way the conversation will unfold will be different to if you don't do that. And to make it even, explain it a little bit further, this is my favorite quote of all times, which is by Bill O'Brien, the former, by nowadays former CEO of Hanover Insurance Company. And he coined the saying that the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. So the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. So this is really nailing what I was referring to, because especially in leadership, successful leadership really depends on the quality of attention and intention that the leader brings to any situation. Like two leaders in the same circumstances doing the same can bring completely different outcomes depending on the inner place from which they operate. And this is like really highlighting the blind spot we all have most of the times regarding how is our inner, how are we feeling, how are we, what's going on inside of us. So there have been a lot of super interesting study also around the topic of high performance athletes, who also prove that anyone who invests in techniques like visualization or really working with mental images and consciously, working with that inner place, that they bring about, these totally amazing results that are much more successful than if you don't do these kind of practices. And to offer you or to give you something very tangible for yourselves, so maybe you want to make a note. Next time you are having a conversation, I really would like to invite you, look them into the eyes and try to stay connected with yourself as you connect with the other person. And perhaps you have to slow down your own speaking when you speak and really do that experiment until you realize a higher level of awareness of self and the other person. And whenever we do this with colleagues and clients, it's really a magical experience because at some point there sparks something, a new quality that wasn't there before. And that's actually hitting already the second skill, which is part of the deep communication formula. And that's about sparking deep connections. So now we focus on the we space, which is mainly about, oops, okay, now the presentation is gone. Let me pull it up again. So, which is really about creating a sense of trust and belonging. So, human beings, we are all social creatures. Like the prehistoric man relied on his tribe to survive, and to be cast out meant death. Very simple. So the need to belong is not a character trait. It's really a basic survival requirement, and it is hardwired into our DNA. So numerous neuroscientific studies show that social connection causes reward centers of the brain to light up. And on the other hand, experiences of social pain, like loneliness, cause activity in the same regions of the brain that process actual physical pain. Like a broken heart quite literally aches. And one of my favorite studies is one of Harvard's longest, most qualitative studies, which is called the Very Happy People study by Ed Diener and Martin Seligman. So this study spanned 80 years and followed the lives of 222 people who were screened on life fulfillment using multiple assessment filters. And they went through the participants' vast medical records. They conducted hundreds of in-person interviews and questionnaires. And the revolutionary findings were that social bonds have a 0.7 correlation to life fulfillment. So think about it. Of everything that the Harvard study looked at, only one factor truly correlated with happiness. And it wasn't health, it wasn't wealth or good looks or fame or living in a place with, nice weather. It was the strength of a person's social connections that mattered most. And I think this is really a strong finding and leads us to the formula of, social connection and also psychological safety, leading to trust and happiness, which are the basis actually for high performance and effective communication. So again, I would like to, invite you and take a moment to reflect if like that we space is really what forms the basis of how, or the interior of any collective, be it your family, your team, any collective. How do I need to show up in order to create more meaningful connections? And I would really invite you to think a moment, what are the qualities you would like to demonstrate and show more often in your community? And again, maybe you want to take a note so that you don't forget once you step out of this lecture. So, and of course, like building the we space in a certain way that allows for trust and belonging. This already has a lot to do with the actual competence and the skill of listening deeply and tuning in. So I think Stephen Covey, the great leadership guru, coined the saying that most people do not listen with the intent to understand, but they listen with the intent to reply. So meaning they are rather focused on themselves and not so much on the other person, so that they are missing out something. And this is what Otto Scharmer, the founder of the Presencing Institute, that is like a daughter institute of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston. He says, like, leadership especially is about being better able to listen to the whole than anyone else can, because it's really about the listening that is not like something which is, I believe, sometimes perceived as something passive, but rather it's an active inner state to inquire, to learn something new, like you're listening right now, to tune in and to understand something on a deeper level. So listening is really key, and Otto Scharmer came up with a framework which I find really powerful on the 4 levels of listening. And hacking these 4 levels of listening truly makes a difference, I must say. So the first level is about downloading. So he calls it listening from habit. It's like when you say, yeah, I know that already. So it's about confirming the judgments you might already have. And when you are in a situation where everything that happens confirms what you already know, you are listening by downloading. And there's, on a social dimension, there is, of course, it's a little bit the basis for any small talk, and it has a lot to do with politeness and confirming each other. The downside is that you scratch on the surface and you are not really finding out something new. When you get to the second stage or the second level of listening, it's about the factual listening. It's when you say, oh, look at that. It's an object-focused or factual listening that by paying attention to facts and to novel or disconfirming data. So in this type of attending, you focus on what differs from what you already know. Your listening has to switch from attending to your inner voice of judgment to attending to the data right in front of you. So you begin to focus on information that differs from what you already know. And object focus or factual listening is the basic mode of good science. So I'm sure that all of you are very good factual listeners, because it's also really, really important for a good debate. But then there's also a third level, which goes beyond the factual listening and includes the listening from within, or the empathic listening. This is when you say, oh yes, I know how you feel. You can really relate to somebody else's perspective. And when you are engaged in a real dialogue, or when you are paying attention, or you become aware of a profound shift in the place from which you are listening. So as long as we operate from the first two types of listening, our listening originates from within the boundaries. So that's actually described by the yellow circles, within the boundaries of our own mental or cognitive organization. But when we are listening empathically, our perception shifts and we move outside our own, cognitive patterns and cognitive organization. And we move from staring at the objective world to more considering, living beings, living systems. And to do so, we have to activate and tune a special instrument, and that is the open heart. So the empathic capacity to connect directly with another person or a living system. And if that happens, maybe we all have made the experience. It's really, if you talk from the heart, it's really a different kind of flow in the conversation. And then, of course, there's the fourth level of listening, and that is what Otto Scharmer calls the generative listening, or listening from the field. And he describes it like, I can't express what I experience in words, so my whole being has slowed down. I feel more present and more connected to my authentic self, and I'm connected to something larger. So this dimension is really about unlocking the collective creativity and to be able to create something new. So whenever you maybe had the chance to have a session with a really fantastic coach, or a person who really listens deeply to what you're saying, then I hope and I believe you have made the experience. Then something shifts, we perceive time moving slower, and we tap into a space where we easily create new ideas. And this is really the state or the listening competence we need for deep communication. So as communication is not a one-way street. We share our point of view, but we also receive something from the outside world, from other people, from what we observe. And the more we practice, like to not only download and listen from, practice the factual listening, we are able to use our whole brain. And that is to really become creative, like to combine the right and left brain hemisphere and get them work together. And as you can imagine, this is also something that really needs a lot of practice, a lot of, dedication to that. As a coach, my aim is for you that you not only listen and hopefully listen deeply today, but that you take something away for your own life and work. So the idea is, in order to practice listening deeply, you might get, once you're back home or in your office, you might get some marbles or stones and a jar. And at night, put a marble in the jar if you feel like you did a good job in listening deeply that day. And take one out when you don't. And if by the end of the week or month, that's as you like, your jar is more or less full, you will notice the quality of your connection with others changing. So that's really the promise I make. If you focus on listening more deeply, your relationship to others will change, and so will the quality of your communication change as well. So, and as you can imagine, the skill number 4, it's about how to use the brain, the power of the unified brain. And that's really has a lot to do with your individual capacity to be able to listen in a generative way. Because, I will explain you in a second. So now we have already covered 3 of the 4 quadrants. So we have talked about the power of presence, the power of building the we space that sparks trust and belonging. We have spoken about the power of listening. And if you bring that together, then there's a super exciting technique called brain coupling. So what is that supposed to be? So ideas pretty much have the same effect on the brain as happy drugs. So when the brain is in a state of inspiration, it releases a surge of dopamine and serotonin. So this is why conceiving brilliant ideas feels incredible. And sharing them is even better. So the experience is like being a kid at an ice cream counter. So imagine yourself as a kid and you want to get an ice cream and you ask for a chocolate scoop, and the clerk asks if you might like to add a second one, and to seizing upon the brilliant idea, you ask for strawberry, and now you have a chocolate strawberry combo of deliciousness that's just far better than what you had initially envisioned. And that's really the same principle when people share ideas and hit on the right idea. They tap into an experience of awe and flow that's difficult to put in words. However, there's a name for this phenomenon, and it's brain coupling. So, and I want to read out to you something that the Emmy-nominated host of National Geographic's TV series Brain Games said about that. His name is Jason Silver, and he explains it like that. We've all experienced that feeling when we are really connecting with somebody. So you meet somebody new and they can really, they're really exciting, and you find yourself hypnotized by their presence. So as you start to converse, as you share stories, you feel like you come into this kind of synchronized element. You feel connected. You feel like you are meshing. You feel like you are on the same vibe, and you feel like you're on the same frequency. And that is when great ideas come about. So this is really like a secret sauce, a formula of how to create the basis for great ideas to come about. It's about combining the being present, creating a we space that is based on trust and belonging. It's about practicing deep listening, and then you have all you need for truly co-creative and generative dialogue that connects. So here again, it's all about practicing. And as we, as we heard when we started, there's so much urge for communication that is that brings a lot of stress sometimes even to our lives, because it's on short notice, it's short messages. But if we make space for like the kind of conversations that move beyond, then it's really a great gift we give to ourselves and also to our work and to the progress of the things we are working on. So I really want to invite you to, once you step out of this week of inspiring lectures, to practice these kind of flow conversations. So they are, as I said, actually the rarest field of conversation. They are a kind of peak experience where boundaries blur and people think together. The conversation slows down, people listen deeply, and silences are pregnant with shared meaning. So it is common for people to complete each other's sentences. Maybe you have experienced that phenomenon. And there is a palpable sense of oneness, as though whoever speaks voices the collective intelligence of the group. So this is really how to practice and make the space to tap into that field of creativity that unleashes innovation. So, but still there is one last ingredient that's missing to our secret sauce to communicate with more impact. And actually it's my favorite feature. So if you take the 4 quadrants again, and we have been covering the 4 key skills, covering each of the 4 quadrants, like presence, trust and belonging, listening, and brain coupling. And if you add one more, which is the MTP. What is MTP? MTP stands for Massive Transformational Purpose. And this term was coined by Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mindvalley, a very, very successful learning platform based in Malaysia and the US. And this is really about bringing a sense of purpose and meaning to your lives, to your life and the lives of everyone you touch. And to do so, we must be obsessed with goals or problems that go beyond ourselves. And to give you an example, there's one story that I totally love, and it's about Steve Jobs. And maybe that also relates a little bit to the work you are doing. So, like Steve Jobs, one of the things that really bothered him was the time, like in his early years, obviously in the early 80s of the last century. So Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, he was really bothered by the fact that the time that it took to boot when the Mac was first powered on. So it could take a couple of minutes, and I had a friend who had one of the first Macintosh computers, and it's so true. It took like ages, and Sometimes it took even longer to test the memory, initialize the operating system, load the Finder, etc., etc. So one afternoon, Steve came up with an original way to motivate his team to make it faster. So when he came to the engineer who was working on the disk driver and the file system, and he stepped in and said, the Macintosh boots too slowly. You've got to make it faster. And then the engineer started to explain about some of the places where he thought that he could improve things, but Steve wasn't really interested. Like he continued, I've been thinking about it. How many people are going to be using this Macintosh? 1 million? No, more than that. In a few years, I bet 5 million people will be booting up their Macintoshes at least once a day. Well, let's say you can shave 10 seconds off of the boot time and multiply that by the 5 million users, and that's 50 million seconds every single day. And over a year, that's probably dozens of lifetimes. So if you make it boot 10 seconds faster, you've saved a dozen lives. And that's really worth it, don't you think? Don't you think? And as you can imagine, the engineers got the job done, and they got it done in far less time than they initially anticipated. And when Jobs expanded the mission, so he successfully motivated his team to shave more than 10 seconds off the boot time over the next couple of months. And this is really a great example of a massive transformational purpose that is so much more thrilling to work on. And I'm happy to give you some further examples for MTPs, for massive transformational purpose statements. Like Elon Musk is working with his company SpaceX. He's working on colonizing Mars. So that's like a big shoot. Bill Gates, in his early days, his purpose was, I want to put a computer on every desk. And yeah, he managed. And Google's purpose is about organizing the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And like for ourselves at Werise, for us, it's all about elevating human consciousness and to uplift people and to drive change from the inside out. So, and there's still a way to go. So this just to give you some, inspiring examples how a massive transformational purpose can really make a difference. And there's, of course, also some science underneath. I'm sure most of you have heard or are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So here you can really find the different stages or needs that need to be met for us to, first of all, feel safe and be capable also to connect and to provide our best in the world. And you can differentiate between deficiency needs that are really like the basic needs, physiological needs to have food and to have your basic needs met, safety, to have, a house, a roof above your head, but also psychological safety, which is closely related to the topic of being loved and to belong, which is, we are hardwired to that need. It's not a character trait. It's really something everyone needs. And then you have the growth needs. And this is how to unleash motivation that lets you go the long way, the marathon. It's not a sprint. It's the needs you need to fuel and you need to feed in order to motivate people to really run the long marathon. And that's about how to grow your self-esteem. That's about self-actualization and self-realization. and ultimately the topic of purpose and meaning in your life. So yeah, that is really the essence of the topic of deep communication. So in a nutshell, your life is not about you, it's about the lives of every single person you touch. And as we communicate, every time is a great opportunity for all of us to bring about like all of the 5 skills we have been talking about. Being connected with ourselves in the very first place so that we can really create resonance and connect with others, to really care about the we space and to show up in a way that sparks deep connections and a sense of belonging for ourselves and for others. Then to practice our way, how we listen, because that really makes a big difference and is considered one of the most important leadership skills from all. Then number 4 is again the topic of brain coupling, to practice flow conversations and to make space to co-create and innovate. And lastly, to think about, why am I doing it? Why are we working on that piece of work? What is our deeper motivation and how can we improve the lives of other people by doing so? And before we finish up, I, again, as a coach, I really would love you to think a moment about your own communication experiment. So please reflect and think about what you want to take from all the 5 skills we have been talking about, which ones you want to incorporate more into your daily life. Perhaps you want to focus on one specific quadrant that somehow rose your attention, or where you had the feeling, oh, this is something I can really, put more focus on or improve, or maybe even I have an issue here with somebody. And if you have like any conflict in your life, maybe you just want to try out and experiment with the 4 levels of listening, or you are stuck at work and you might want to create a space for a flow conversation and really unleash some new ways of thinking. So this is my invitation to you to take something really concrete and tangible out of today's lecture that you want to experiment with. And I thank you very much for your attention. I'd love to keep connected somehow. I put my handle, my LinkedIn and Instagram handle here in case you want to reach out. I'm really, happy to get your feedback, to get your thinking, your experiences. And now I think we have still plenty of time left for discussions, for your questions, and I'm totally delighted to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Irina. So now I request the participant, if you have any query, you may please, you can ask. If you have anything you want to ask about motivation or about skills for communication, you are welcome to ask questions now. Dr. Bhatia. Questions? Yes. Please unmute yourself first. Please unmute. You are not audible, Sandeep. Hello.
Very good morning, Irina.
Hi, Sandeep.
So, hello, Irina. I am Vishwanath. So, I
Yeah,
would
okay,
like to ask.
Vishwanath. Yes, Vishwanath, please.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Irina, I want to ask about something about Maslow's theory.
Mm-hmm.
You in the previous slide you show about show the various layers of Maslow's theory. So it is new. It is a new term for me. Can you go through that slide?
Yeah, sure. So I pull it up again. Okay. So what you're saying is, oops, that you, it's the first time you saw it.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay, super. Yeah. Okay, just a second. We're almost there. So, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you want me to go through it again, right? Like say something about it. Okay, super. Yeah. So in essence, it's about there is a hierarchy in needs, and of course, first of all, there are our physiological needs. So if you're starving, if you don't have enough food, you are very unlikely to think about your purpose day in and out, or how you can advance yourself. If you have a physiological need that is unmet, that's your purpose. I mean, to get some food, to get a shelter, to sleep, just to really meet the needs of your body and to take care of that. That's like really number one. And if that has been taken care of, then of course there are safety needs. Like if we don't have a home, again, we probably won't be very much concerned about our self-esteem or our deeper why or our vision in life, but we will need to tackle the issue of safety first, and get ourselves a home or a shelter. Then the third one the third level is about love and belonging. That's what I said earlier. We are hardwired we are social beings. And I think one of our really biggest fears, and I think that's beyond any cultural difference, our greatest fear really is to not belong to our family or to a certain group, or at all to not be being valued as a member of any community or society. And you can also think of these stages if you remind yourself when you came onto this planet as a baby. That's pretty much related also to the stages of development each and every single one of us has gone through. Like, first of all, as a baby, if we are hungry, we just cry. And that's like our biggest concern. We need to be fed. Then, of course, we want to feel safe. And we need the love and attention of our parents in order to grow and in order to learn. And so this is what Maslow calls deficiency needs. So if those needs are not met, we really have a deficiency. But if those needs are met, then we are really ready to grow, like to work on our self-esteem, to contribute to the world through our work in our families. Then we might consider even the topic of self-actualization, working on ourselves, evolve ourselves, learn new skills, create a new identity as we grow and assume more responsibilities in life. And ultimately, the topic of a higher meaning, of purpose, like what gives meaning to your life. And this kind of builds upon the former stages. So I need to have a certain self-reflective capacity to then ultimately think about a certain purpose, or define a certain purpose for my life, or sense it, or yeah. So, and this is really, if you want to motivate people, then you can always look at this hierarchy from two perspectives. Like on the one hand, you really need to ask yourself, am I meeting like what is called here the deficiency needs? Am I providing like the basic things somebody needs in order to feel comfortable and to be good? And then the second perspective is really, what does somebody need in order to grow? What does somebody need in order to grow? Is it a new skill? Is it to learn something? Is it a new experience? And of course, the growth needs are those that spark the highest degrees of motivation, and that feed, like a motivation from a more sustainable point of view as well. So does this answer your question, or do you want to
thank you.
deeper?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Thank you, Irina. Such a wonderful explanation of this Maslow theory, and yes, it is really appreciable how you explain it wonderfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Sandeep.
I just the talk indeed was so refreshing. Like when you sometimes listen to a musical whole comes pure poetry. So in the whole chain of sense that you had arranged for everyone, from this is a phase where in the context poetic, I really like the whole talk. I just have one small question. I find we talk about a lot of communication over every day in our everyday, but this communication is missing, and in a way, like kids who are growing up, they find a sort of invitation to like touch onto this sort of the communication, or the actual purpose of life itself. So why that inhibition is being problem of the current generation, or the generation, or is it it's all question? But yeah, thank you.
You were breaking apart a little bit, so I'm not sure if I got it. Like you, Sanjeev, did you get the question? Oh, you are still you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it was not very clear because of intermittent voice. It was breaking, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Maybe
you can post your question in the chat.
Or you can say again once, Sandeep. Your connection is a bit, I think, not continuous. It's breaking in between.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not able to find the chat.
Now it's okay. Now you can speak when you are stable at a particular position. Then I think it's better.
Okay. Yeah, the question is, I find a lot of times young people find some sort of inhibition to touch upon the deeper sense or the deeper purpose in communication. What might be the reason?
Okay, that's interesting. So you say young people have a greater inhibition to touch upon that, or because I would say my experience is the other way around. Like I experience younger people are really more keen to actually they only work on things that spark that deeper meaning to them. Have I understood you correctly? So you say young people are not so much looking for purpose?
That is what I have felt.
Okay.
But maybe it's wrong.
Wow.
But because most of the time they pass their grades, they do come up good in education and stuff. But at the end of the day, whether they are contributing to humanity or whether they are actually doing something for sort of better understanding, I really doubt that. So maybe it's a problem of the systematic education that we are following, or some problems like probably it's very regional as well. But I have studied, I would say, in Germany. I've been in Jena for a year. I've been in London for a year, and I've been in Belgium for like 5 years. So I've been in India throughout like the rest of my life. But I find like the real purpose of life is sometimes not well communicated from generation to generation.
That's so true. That is so true, Sandeep. I can feel you totally. And now I think I got you. So yes, first of all, I do believe that the type of educational system, there might be subjects touching upon, topics like motivation and purpose, but it's not like ingrained into how the subjects are being communicated or being brought about to the people. And I think if you look again to the hierarchy of needs, I believe that a lot of young people are really struggling to survive in that system of, I have to get somewhere, I have to be successful, I have to get the grades, because if I don't get that, I won't get this, and maybe this is on a psychological level, again, on a very low level within the hierarchy of needs, that if I psychologically think I need to survive, I don't have any capacity like to really think about what might be the bigger why or my bigger contribution. And sometimes maybe that begins at, you need a certain degree of maturity maybe to really focus on that, and to also take this as a means for making decisions. So maybe the younger you are, the more you follow the rules that are being given and presented to you, and the more mature you get, you might be ready to question what you see and decide from what you perceive as something that gives meaning to your life. So I think it might be true, like both things that we said, like on the one hand, your experience that it's not so much about purpose and meaning in many cases. And on the other hand, if I think of what we call, and I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing, the generation Z. So this is really labeled as the generation Y, and they drop out of the workforce if they don't find, that deeper meaning. If they don't want to work for companies that, that don't serve humanity or that pollute the environment. So maybe it's there are two developments, and both are you can observe both. Yeah. Does that resonate with you, Sandeep?
Thank you for your.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
It does. The whole time you're talking about resonance, I was thinking like.
Okay.
It's like
So you're breaking off.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes your voice is not clear, Sandeep. Thank you, Sandeep, to ask the question, and thank you, Irina, to answer it. I hope as Sandeep wanted. I hope. Now, any other participant want to ask question or hand? Who is this? Yes, Anupsi. Hello.
Yes.
You want to ask
Yes.
Irina something? Yes. Apile, you can open your video if you want. It's up to you if you want. Yeah. It's fine.
Hi.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Anushri Jawhari. Ma'am, my question is that if I am working on the administrative post in any institute, and if I have some institute-related issue, and how I can play a role of good administrator, as everyone have the different point of view for the same problem. I have the different point of view and some other person have different point of view. So how I can play a good role as an administrator? That is my question.
I love your question, Anushi. I think that's so relevant and we can all relate to that. So, yeah, I think first of all, it's really, if you are aware, okay, there are different perspectives on one issue. And I think this is really when this kind of generative listening and generative speaking can really help you break through this issue, because what is needed, it's needed like a higher perspective to being able to integrate the different aspects of your individual views. So I'm sure you know that saying about the elephant that is not visible in the room, and some grab like the legs or the trunk, and everybody claims their truth to be the truth. So the elephant feels like the trunk, and that's it. So what you need to do is really like to make this explicit, to say, okay, obviously there's kind of an elephant because we all perceive bits and pieces of it, and why not meet on a higher level and really listen to the other and not judge. Like, try to listen without judging in the first place. And if you make an invitation to that kind of dialogue, to say, okay, if we want to progress in that topic, we need to start listening deeper to each other to understand the unique perspective and then be able to integrate it into something new. So I think it's really the invitation to, okay, we are stuck. So let's take it, let's play it in a different way, and to keep all our judgments outside and really listen.
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Anupsi, and thanks, Irina, to answer her. I hope she agreed with the answer. But now I think I should also ask a question. I am motivated from Anupsi and Sandeep, and so I have one question: that if we have a child, right, and like I started learning German when I was in Berlin, right, for 1 year. So what I feel now, like, we have a child, suppose born and brought up in a country, and if after birth we keep it in another country from the next few hours or days, and with another parents from maybe German parents, right, Indian boy, right, and if he will grow there, so his ascent and the way and the speed with which there's you can say pace of learning will be faster and more native than if we start learning for 5 years here. So if 5-year kids, German kids, suppose learning German, or Indian kid learning Hindi is different than a kid which we switch. What do you think? You understand my question? No.
I'm not sure. No.
Suppose I am learning German for 5 years, right? So my German will not be so like yours, right? But if I keep one child, Indian child, after birth in suppose a Germany, right? So then he will be like a native, right? So why it is so? What's the difference, you think?
I guess it's all about the how deep you really land into a culture and in an environment. I mean, that's what you are surrounded with day in and day out, is what is leaving its mark on on the person you are.
So it means if we have a German kid and we put it here, suppose in Pori, and then we grow him or her, so he will be more Indian.
I think so, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah,
it's nothing related to the taking birth. It's just the environment you are growing, you learn that language in general. Yes?
In terms of the language as a competency, yes. In terms of your being, I believe that you bring certain things are innate, and that it's totally independent whether you are being raised in India or in Germany or wherever. But other things are, we are also a product of our surroundings, and that's why it's so important to focus on that inner place, because that's what's always under our own control. So we can always take that conscious decision, how am I about to react? Or I am reactive and, I get triggered and I'm on some autopilot mode. So, yeah, that's more a philosophical answer to your question.
Yes, because normally if a boy is learning Hindi, he will suppose someone took birth, so after 5 years he's Hindi, and your Hindi, if you start learning Hindi today after 5 years, so it will be a big difference.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
He will be more like natural and native kind of.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's also due to the fact of neuroplasticity. So the younger you are, the faster you build, connections in your brain. The older we are, the slower we get. And that's why learning is more difficult as we grow. So we need to keep learning every day to keep that neuroplastic quality really being active.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other participant? If you have any question, anything you want to ask? Participants, if you have any question you want to ask to Irina?
I'm also curious if you have an experiment that you want to start now. I'm also really curious to learn about that. Maybe somebody wants to share the communication experiment you take out of this today.
I didn't get your question exactly. What do you mean? The feedback?
No, like one of the last slides, I invited you to kick off your own communication experiment. Like, what will you specifically want to take out of today's lecture? And I'm just curious if somebody has an idea what he or she wants to do.
Yeah, any participant want to share the idea? No? So I think we have enough 24 minutes session for question answer, and we are now almost our time is 1.5 hours here now. Okay, so thank you very much, Irina, Naithani, for delivering a very excellent talk on deep communication, and I hope our participant learn a lot from it, and they will use it in their daily life also. The 5 steps you have explored and discussed with us, 5 skills needed for communication. And definitely it was a very good talk in the sense that, okay, not only technical or just be engineer, we are also as a social element, and we have to communicate for everyday need and everywhere to succeed in our life. So in that respect, this talk was really, really valuable, and that's why we have the idea from AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education, to keep such talks in between our 5-day session, so that our participants can also have a bit, they can relax, and after technical lectures, they can have these kind of lectures. So it was very good talk. Thank you very much for your time. And yes, I hope in future we will see if we can also have some lectures in coming years also. So thank you, Irina, for your time, and I also appreciate all the participants whosoever online here, and I hope it was valuable for you. So thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank
And
you.
participants, we will meet after 1.5 hour, after 1 hour, in which the Professor Hirtwan Steenberg from Belgium will deliver a lecture on photonics integration after 1 hour. So Irina, you want to say something? You said something, so please.
No, okay, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you.
All the
Bye-bye.
best to you. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.